Tim Pool, the fake moderate. I saw Jubilee apparently made it seem like he was a moderate on their thumbnail. That was kind of crazy. Going up against 20 progressives is Jubilee. I'm going to react to it, see if there's any good points made by the Russian paid asset, allegedly. Let's dive right into it. 1.5 speed, that's how
authoritarian practices today, you're willing to look past.
Some of them, yes.
Come on, man.
The mainstream political left commits more violence than the mainstream political right.
None of what you're saying makes any sense. It sounds like you're honestly grifting a lot.
You can say that
Let me ask you a question.
war every fucking year, and it doesn't happen. And
I never said there was.
Happened yet.
You want me to get you a soapbox?
It's really easy. It's really easy to do what you do. It's really easy to do what you do.
Is the United States tracking towards civil war, or is America more united than it seems? Hi everyone, I'm Pierce Rose, and I'll be filling in for John today. From Jubilee Media, this is Surrounded, where one brave soul faces a room full of disagreeers. Today we're debating which political party is more violent. Is authoritarianism on the rise in America? And have both parties abandoned their oath to the Constitution? I'm here with our featured guest, moderate political commentator, Tim Pool.
Hi, I'm Tim Pool. I'm the host of Timcast IRL, and today I'm surrounded by progressives. My first surrounded claim is that the mainstream left commits more violence than the mainstream right.
If you'd like to be the first debater, get
the mainstream left commits more violence than the mainstream right. Well, like objectively, that's just not true in totality. If we're using statistics, the political right has been more violent over the last 20 years. I think only the last 2 years, the mainstream left, I guess, has become more violent. But even those cases are a little bit more up in the air. But overall, in terms of violence, yeah, mainstream right has it pretty much on lock for the most part. But let's see what type of arguments he's going to put up.
the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Bless me.
How's
it going? Hey.
Great to meet you, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
There seems to be a broader implication.
I've said this before and I'll say this again. If the guy that you're about to debate is someone you vehemently hate, you dislike, you think he's an enemy, you think he's a bad person, I think Tim Pool is a piece of garbage. I'm not going to shake his hand. I'm not going to do these pleasantries. But to be fair, I don't know him personally. Nah, he's a piece of garbage, bro. Russian paid asset. Allegedly.
With your prompt that there's this domestic threat from mainstream left politicians. Do you really think Hillary Clinton's leading the Vanguard Revolution Party?
No.
What is your take?
When you look at the violence that we do see, it's from, I describe it as from blunt to acute, which is with the fringe extreme right, you'll see extreme mass shootings. You'll see, someone will show up and they'll unload on people, things like that. On the left, though, you'll see riots, vandalism that you don't see from the right. But the point I'm making is that when you break down the ideology that motivates individuals that commit political violence, there
riots and protests. Of course, he's referring to BLM. And we always have to repeat this. When it comes down to political violence, it has to align with violence of an identity or ideology. Some of the BLM riots was people who were not politically motivated. They were just committing violence. Now, I just want to specify, most protests were peaceful, but that does not give any excuse for the people who were violent. But if they were doing it for a political movement, that would be different from doing it just to be anarchical. Anarchical? Is that a word? Anarchical? You guys know what I'm saying. They were just robbing. They were just setting things ablaze. There was no political movement there. This wasn't done for a political purpose. So that's just a lazy claim to make. Things that are politically motivated needs to be the crux of the argument of violence that you're trying to have right now. That's why you made a distinction between left and right.
There is more often overlap between what the Democratic Party espouses ideologically and what we see in street-level violence, as well as maybe assassinations.
What is it?
What the Republicans would espouse?
I mean, I couldn't.
That's such a surface level overlapping of different elements of the conversation. What he's trying to do is basically say any minorities that are doing something, they're obviously not Republican, they're obviously not right wing, so they kind of correspond with the Democrats. He's alluding to any violence or any problematic thing that happens with minorities or people who are typically protected from the Democratic Party. Those people are by default align with democratic political violence, that's such a lazy and manipulative tactic right there. Let's see how this guy responds.
Disagree more. What ideologies that the Democratic Party is promoting that leads to these types of violence?
There we
Anytime you
go.
see an act of violence that's typically attributed to the left, it is immediately condemned by every Democrat politician.
Indeed.
You can point to one that actually endorses that. Or you have somebody like Donald Trump, who's literally the president of the United States, saying that we should call for the death of congressional members who are fulfilling their civic duty and saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't fulfill illegal orders if you're in the military. And Donald Trump's asking for them to be put to death. How is that not inciting to violence?
No, that's absolutely.
He's about to concede that is absolutely a call to violence. This guy is going to get cooked this entire episode, by the way. But this is the perfect response. Not only is what Tim's saying conflating a lot of things that are just not related, but also there's no way to defend very clear acts and direction of violence. And if we're talking mainstream, from mainstream politicians that are actively doing despicable things and calling for despicable things. He mentioned the recent thing where a president was calling for the death of politicians. I don't even need to go any further, but we could obviously mention Jan 6. We can mention the people that were getting killed on these boats without any evidence that they were actually smuggling drugs. We could talk about the citizens that died because of Donald Trump's private military ice. We can go so many directions, but let's hear the grifter grift.
Absolutely terrifying. I completely disagree with that. My point more so is that when you see, say, the George Floyd or the BLM riots, you end up with Biden and Kamala themselves promoting fundraisers for those accused of committing these crimes.
I knew it.
Which crimes?
I knew it. I knew you. I could predict these people. I already explained how this is a lazy fucking argument, so I'll just let my boy here cook them. I already explained.
Which crimes could you point to?
So in Minnesota, you had there was a firefighter who opened a sports bar. It was burned down. In fact, when the local news went to interview him about his dream bar being burnt to the ground, it was ransacked. I don't think it was burned to the ground. They while they're filming the story, there were people looting a safe and stealing it.
Well, I think that there's absolutely a big difference between a lot of the private buildings or private enterprises that were targeted versus like public institutions like the police precinct. Like you're somebody who I've seen the iconography on your show. You're a big patriotic guy. You love 1776, right? That wasn't the most peaceful way that we had, criticizing our government or saying that tyranny shouldn't exist.
How long was the Revolutionary War going on before they signed the Declaration?
I will say that the police precincts, the same people who committed a brutal murder using state violence in order to justify that, I think we can understand why people would rightfully be mad without any accountability. Which political party is in control
of the police department in Minneapolis?
That is not the central. First of all, we're talking about the mainstream political left. Which politicians are endorsing that type of behavior?
Never said politicians were endorsing it.
Then what's the mainstream left?
So you have activists whose ideology aligns with politicians who are.
You'd say that those.
See, he's doing the thing. He's doing the thing. Yeah, this might not. They don't have like a political reason why they're doing things, but like they align in every sense of the word. I bet a lot of these people are not even politically motivated. I bet a lot of them are probably more nonpartisan or independent, if anything, because the majority of Americans are. But just because they're at a protest that align with a democratic or the moniker of a protest, because I'm not going to call any riots a protest, to be honest, nor a political movement, but just because they are getting themselves integrated with a political protest and that they're a minority, that makes this a political motivated attack. It's such a lazy way to discuss what happened. And this is one of the biggest problems with politics, where people have very lazy arguments that have actually no substance behind what they're saying, but they need to grift to keep up a facade of who they are to a base that is obviously paying them, giving them money, their base, their views. It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
Activists identify with the Democratic Party.
I would say the Democratic Party.
Because let me tell you, the leftists that you could talk to, not the biggest fans of the Democratic Party.
In favor of Black Lives Matter?
I would say, yeah. I'd say even most moderates. I'd say actual moderates, not right-leaning conservatives who claim to be moderates. Usually those people also agree that police violence is something that should be discouraged.
Were the riots Black Lives Matter motivated?
They were motivated.
By Black Lives Matter. So that ideology is espoused by...
No,
so my point is
Black Lives Matter is not encouraging violence. Black Lives Matter is recognizing systemic inequality.
Never said they were telling people to go be violent. I'm saying that there are violent individuals. And with the riots, a lot of them, which you've seen...
Can you tell me tell me who Chris Wray is? Do you know who Chris Wray is?
Explain to me.
Well, you have a show talking about politics every day. I would think that you know. But Chris Wray was the former...
Let's not do this. If you have a point to make, let's make a point.
Yes, sir. So Chris Wray was the former FBI director under Donald Trump's first term. Yep. He said that he even agreed with the findings from both the congressional research session that right-wing violence is way more proliferate in
But we're
this
not
country
talking
than
about
left-wing
that.
violence.
That's not meaningful to a voter. Let me explain. The Republican Party rejects neo-Nazism, correct?
No, Donald Trump invited Nick Fuentes to have dinner with him, with Kanye West.
So tell me one politician who went out and campaigned.
Oh my God, that was a terrible point. The Republican Party condemns neo-Nazism. How could you make that claim when he said what he just said here in regards to Nick Fuentes? How can we make that claim? Like, let's be honest. Now, of course, the Republican Party is very much aligned with Israel. So they will be, of course, very critical of any like anti-Jewish sentiment because of their strong ties with Israel, especially like Ted Cruz, who thinks this is like a religious means that, Christians need to protect Jerusalem, all that, blah, blah, blah. But let's also be very honest. In the Groyper movement, which is very clearly Nazis, are individuals that take up a huge percentage of the right. Now, a lot of them are leaving, to be fair, like the Candace Owens, like the Fuentes types, of course. But they also, at the very least, they also for sure originated from your side of extremism. That's why you also got a lot of white nationalists, like the Proud Boys, aligned with your movement too. So if we're doing the lazy argument of, oh, they're there for BLM and therefore they are a means of political violence from the Democratic Party, then you could do the same thing for any like white nationalist group who tends to be aligned with Republican rhetoric and Republican policy. I mean, they're just co-signing Republican violence. And oftentimes it is actually politically motivated. So it's a pathetic argument.
Paying for the neo-Nazi vote.
I'm blanking on his name, but Gozar, and
is that a mainstream
Arizona.
view in this country?
Well, we could talk about Gozar. We could talk about Matt Gaetz. We could talk about
Matt Gaetz is not endorsing neo-Nazism, and Donald Trump
Are
said
you kidding me?
Nazis should be condemned entirely.
No, he's literally partnering with the America First movement. He was
America First and neo-Nazism are totally different,
bro. So you don't think do you think Nick Fuentes is a neo-Nazi? I forgot you've had him on your show. Oh my God, I literally forget.
I wouldn't describe Nick Fuentes as a neo-Nazi.
You don't think that Nick Fuentes celebrating Adolf?
At this point, I don't know what a neo-Nazi is. If Nick Fuentes is not a neo-Nazi, I don't know what it is. I don't know what that term means. Hey, man, it's fun to grift. It's fun to grift. It's fun to grift. This is pathetic. Temple getting cooked.
Not neo-Nazi adjacent.
I think you have to be very specific on what your terms are. And so when you go to an American voter and say something like...
This is our moderate, by the way, everybody. This is our moderate.
Indeed.
Keep going.
So when you go to a regular...
Temple is not a moderate. He does not represent moderates. I represent moderates. Me, this guy, who has better facial hair. This guy right here. I represent moderates and centrist voters way more than Temple.
American and ask them what is meaningful to them in terms of an election. You don't have Democrats or Republicans endorsing violence, but you also don't have, Charlie Kirk's a good example. He threw out Nick Fuentes, he threw out white identitarians, white nationalists from his events. They were not welcome. That's mainstream. You don't have riots coming from the Republican Party.
January 6th happened. What the fuck? Yo. He is just jumping all over the place with his points. This is pathetic. This is pathetic. He's getting fucking destroyed.
And the right, although you do have January 6th and things like that. When you take a look at the shootings of the Tesla facilities, the execution of Aaron Danielson, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and one of the attempted assassinations on...
Charlie Kirk was not proven to be right-wing, not proven. But I think one of Trump's, not both of Trump's, were right-wing. The Tesla, I think Tesla, you can argue, is very clearly politically motivated. He mentioned something else. I just didn't catch that one.
Donald Trump, not the Pennsylvania one. You can see the underlying ideologies overlap with the Democratic Party. When you take a look at like Nick Fuentes, he's opposed to the Republican Party. He's been actively endorsing Democrats right now. He's
been saying that the Republican Party is too left for him. It's not that he's opposed to the Republican Party in principle.
This is literally my point. No, Nick Fuentes comes out and says, "Do not vote for Trump." The mainstream Republican.
This is such a dog shit point. And this is so bad. This is so bad. Because he made a conflation of identity in relation to support of the party. But if we're talking about people's rhetoric or their own feelings regarding the party, he realizes that the Democratic Party hates itself. He realizes that voters within the party itself hate the Democratic Party. They believe they're not doing enough. And if we're talking about like radicals on the far left, they hate Democrats. Like This is such a dog shit argument. This is a terrible argument.
Republican Party's at odds with these people.
No, again, if you're looking at all of the empirical data, the violence is way more on the right.
But
so
that's not
you can
the
say
claim.
what your feelings are. You
That's
can
not
say
my
that
feeling nor the claim.
No,
it's not meaningful to a voter to say we don't like neo-Nazis and white supremacists because the Republican Party is not saying they want to white America.
Let's be objective of where the violence is coming from, and if it's more substantially coming from the right, that is a problem that needs to be tackled.
It's not coming from Charlie Kirk.
Okay, we're not talking about Charlie Kirk. We're talking about the overall ideologies.
In fact, we're not.
So you're telling
me
not my claim. You're telling me that the prioritization,
but it's coming from Republican politicians like Donald Trump,
that is not a dangerous ideology.
And the leader of the party
that says, hey, maybe we should take back police violence. Maybe we should have accountability for people who are in charge of certain aspects of our nation committing violence on citizens. Those are absolutely completely different ideologies. And the fact that you're saying it is more motivating for violence, that the left wing is encouraging people to take those that are committing violence accountable.
In the last 10 years, there have been over 465 incidents of left-motivated political violence that aligns with the Democratic Party, and there's been one on the Republican side, which is January 6th, which admittedly is particularly egregious. January 6th was, that's why we talk about blunt versus acute. Now, the problem is, I already know what you're going to say. You're going to cite FBI stats and Cato, but it's not meaningful to me or any voter to tell me why white supremacists are violent, because I don't like white supremacists, nor will I vote for them. And more importantly, you bring up Nick Fuentes, he is not aligned with Republicans, and he's advocated against them.
I think for somebody who has a political show where you talk about this stuff every day, you are completely misreading the conversation when you're saying that those that are engaged in like civil disobedience are like Democrat voters. You're telling me that those people are canvassing for Democratic politicians, which is absolutely not true.
Absolutely in favor of canvassing. I'm in favor of protesting.
I'm not saying that you're against that.
So
but I'm saying
don't try and frame my argument like I'm upset with protests, because I've defended Black Lives Matter blocking streets. I've defended left-aligned progressive groups like anti-capitalist groups blocking streets and environmental groups. I stand with civil disobedience, and I've defended them every single time. If you want to block a road,
what is it that you're saying is more violent on the left? You mentioned Black Lives Matter. You mentioned these protests.
Let's talk about the Tesla facilities being unloaded upon or shot up, right? These are motivated by an ideology that you will hear from Elizabeth Warren. Now, of course, she's not telling people to shoot anybody, but she is coming out saying Elon Musk is a dangerous threat to this country. And then you end up with someone going and pulling a rifle up and shooting up a Tesla.
When you understand that the right always says politicians are not responsible for individual actions. Elizabeth Warren saying, hey, maybe we should have.
This is a terrible argument. I think Tim Pool got cooked for sure. Is there... I don't know. Do I need to see more? This is like he had no good concrete argumentation. He lost in the first matchup. That's why he kept on pivoting his points to make different points. This is not good. All right, let's go right to claim 2. The Democratic Party
claim is that the Democratic Party has embraced authoritarianism.
Like, this is not. This is unserious. We aren't serious if we're making the claim that the Democratic Party has embraced authoritarianism when the Republican Party exists. I think what Tim Pool is trying to do is he's trying to undermine the awfulness, the evilness of like the worst parts of the Republican Party and Donald Trump by trying to make a conflationary argument to the Democratic Party. And he's going to try his best. He tried his best regarding the violence thing. That was an awful fucking argumentation. It was terrible. His points were dog shit, which is why he kept on trying to shift points so he didn't have to address the evilness of the MAGA party and Donald Trump in particular. But now we're doing authoritarianism. How the fuck are you going to win this one? The amount of things we can mention regarding Donald Trump is numerous. So let's see how Tim Pool's his grifting ass is going to explain this away. Let's see it.
If you'd like to be the first debater, please get to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
That was fast. Nice to meet you. Let's start off not by, oh God,
Dean
don't make me defend
alike.
Republicans. But let's go.
All right, let's talk about authoritarianism.
Yeah.
What does an authoritarian government do?
Deep voice.
So it's typically, and particularly in my claim, it's a reference to suppression of dissent, suppression of speech, control of voting, or manipulation of voting for the power, for the, let's just call it control by a particular group.
So basically, Tim Pool has actually no definition, and is trying to apply very specific characteristics to Democratic Party to align with his, his argument, his points. Whereas the idea of authoritarianism, like the more simplistic idea, you could say is control. That's way too broad, but it is the overexertion of power from the government, in particular when we're talking about like the way it will be used in this government the president of the United States, the executive branch, where it goes over the institution and the principles of the democracy that is held regarding America, and it exerts its powers beyond its intended powers to exert more power into oneself and to one individual. That's kind of the core thing about authoritarianism, is that this is a power exuded upon an individual. And I mean, I guess it could be a power exuded upon like a group of people, like more of like an oligarchy, right? I think you could maybe make that argument, but regardless, it is an overextension of power beyond the confines of what our American institutions is supposed to be held. So it's clearly something much more intentional. Control is so generic. There is always going to be a level of control for the government against other institutions across America. The question is it a meaningful or like a normal level of control that makes sense within the confines of our institutions? Or is this going above what is intended and you're breaking the institutions themselves by doing this? We will see, but I don't know. It's kind of a little bit of a wordy definition. I guess I could look one up as well. Define authoritarianism. Of relating to or favoring blind submission to authority, or relate to or favor concentration of power in a leader and elite, not constitutionally responsible to the people. That definition completely aligns with what I said. Instilled authority. I said individual, maybe an oligarchy. That's why it says a leader or an elite. So literally the individual or the oligarchy, which would be the elite. So that completely coincides with my definition. And then constitutionally responsible to the people. Not constitutionally responsible to the people. And that's what I meant by like the institutions, in the sense that it is like exuding more power into oneself, willing to break the institutions that exist because they are for the people. That's pretty much on, but that one is a little bit more easier to understand, other than my like yapping. All right, let's continue.
Let's take those claims one at a time.
Yeah.
First, on suppression of speech.
Indeed.
Just a few hours ago today, Trump subpoenaed reporters for trying to report accurate information on the war.
You can. The best strategy. Oh, I pause so much. I know people get annoyed, but is the best strategy to utilize his dog shit definition, or indicate your own more realistic, like actual definition? I guess you could do both. I would elicit both, but let's see where this guy goes. And I'm not going to pause for the next couple minutes.
You're wrong.
Wow,
He said,
that's terrible.
No, that can't happen.
Awful.
That's way more authoritarian than what we're seeing on the left here.
Well, I mean, it's hard to quantify what is more or less authoritarian, but certainly bad when President Trump is trying to stifle speech.
Wait, can you give any example of Biden doing anything even comparable to that?
I can. We can start with Alex Berenson, who is currently in a lawsuit because the Biden administration personally went to social media platforms using his name to be suspended for his reporting on COVID vaccination and mandates.
Okay. At a top level, though, who's doing the majority of the
All right, let's look at this fact check, because typically when it comes to these claims, MAGA is lying. So I don't have to look it up. So let's just see
when
what
President
they
Trump
say.
is trying to stifle speech.
Wait, can you give any example of Biden doing anything even comparable to that?
I can. We can start with Alex Berenson, who is currently in a lawsuit because the Biden administration personally went to social media platforms using his name.
Alex M. Berenson account was temporarily suspended by Twitter and permanently banned for alleged violations of its COVID-19 misinformation rules after posts criticized vaccine effectiveness and mandates. Survey later showed White House officials to press Twitter about why Berenson had not been kicked off the platform.
To be suspended for his reporting on COVID vaccination and mandates.
Okay. At a top level, though, who's doing the majority of the actual suppression of speech here?
I don't really have good words for the Republican Party, to be honest. My issue with this debate is in fact.
Which, like I said earlier, again, coinciding with the things that I knew Tim Pool was going to do here, he can't defend the Republican Party, but in order to save face for the Republican Party, he needs to equivocate as much as possible to make seem the Democrats are as bad or worse. So instead of defending your disgusting behavior, you're just going to make it seem like, oh no, this other side does it too. Freaking pathetic. That's why I hate this piece of garbage. And he was reinstated after settling a separate lawsuit against Twitter in 2022, where it's alleged that administration pressure violated the First Amendment, but a federal judge dismissed this case against Biden-era officials in 2025. Justice Department later settled the appeal in 2026 without merits rulings that the administration acted unlawfully. I mean, this case happened, and if you're going to make the kind of generalized claim that this is antagonistic to freedom of speech, I mean, how much evidence is there? This is more like assumptions that there was this kind of pressure campaign based off allegations. But if we're talking about like direct attacks on freedom of speech, I mean, where do we want to go? Do we want to talk about the Justice Department being utilized to go after journalists? Do we want to use the Justice Department utilized to go into journalists' homes and look at their stuff? Do we want to go into Donald Trump preventing certain journalists and media outlets from going to the White House because they're not playing ball enough for the Trump administration? Do we want to go into Donald Trump and his connections with the other elites and how they're buying up all the media companies, which is why they would settle that lawsuit in the first place? So now Paramount and CBS can start buying up things like CNN, NBC, so they can have like a monopoly on information dissemination in politics. And that's why we're also giving like favorable positions to Barbara Weiss because she plays ball with the Trump administration as well. Are we going to talk about how Donald Trump is utilizing something called like Trump API, where he is going to allow specific individuals and groups to have access early to his True Social posts? So he is not only profiting off of information given out, but also because these posts typically align with policy prescriptions, that this will highly affect the betting market. So they're affecting the betting market and affecting like millions of dollars that are being used based off like policies that are about to happen potentially. For example, the guy that won millions of dollars because he predicted that the Iran war happening. So Donald Trump has this whole scheme where he's getting paid for companies to get early information so they can get paid from the betting markets. Like, are we going to talk about how Donald Trump, even in his first administration, he pressured Twitter because they were not playing ball with him and they were going at him, or he was pissed off that they were not like playing nice with him. So he tried to pressure Twitter, either like banning someone or something else in regards to he believes that they were just being mean to him or something. It's something the first administration. It's been a long time since I saw that report, but you can look that up. That's 100% true. Are we talking about how he pressured the law firms using the Justice Department, forcing those departments when they obviously went after him because of the bullshit he did regarding Jan 6 and all the illegal stuff and the indictments? He pressured all of them to kind of pay suits and play ball as well because, they went after him when he was in his first term, despite his illegal bullshit. This is just stuff off the top of the dome, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of the violations of freedom of speech. I haven't even mentioned the stuff regarding pro-Palestinian protesters and how they were locked up. I haven't even mentioned how he pressured universities and education. I haven't mentioned like so many. This is like the tip of the iceberg in terms of violations of freedom of speech. So, cry me a river. If we're talking about control and authoritarian use of power against, speaking out against Trump, this motherfucker has a page on his website of social media content creators that have talked bad about Donald Trump. He has the names of these content creators on his webpage. Get the fuck out of here.
What we're seeing right now is that I'll make a claim about the Democratic Party, which has done awful things, and the immediate response is, but the Republicans, and I don't like Republicans.
Here's the thing. We live in a two-party system, right?
Lies.
They can have this great
lies. He 100% campaigned for Trump. Now he's gonna act like he doesn't like Republicans. Go fuck yourself, Tim Pool. This is a lying piece of shit. Don't even start playing that game. You've campaigned and petitioned for Republicans for years. You are grifting. In this case, you are equivocating so you can make the MAGA administration not as bad by comparing them to Democrats. Jesus. We know you allegedly got paid by Russia. Are you getting paid by the Trump administration too? Get the fuck out of here. you don't like Republicans. Yeah, right.
Of like, oh, well, the Democrats are bad, but we can, and the Republicans, they might be worse, but the Democrats are still bad. But the option is between Democrats or Republicans.
Yes.
So if Republicans are worse, it doesn't really matter if Democrats are slightly bad.
No, I think Democrats are worse.
We don't love Democrats, but we feel that Republicans are way worse when they institute these far more authoritarian policies.
It's hard to quantify more. The question is, does it suppress speech? And I certainly think Donald Trump has taken actions.
Let's look at human lives. If we want to do like a quantification here, let's look at ICE. 3 American citizens have been killed by ICE. That's way more than the number of American citizens killed by immigration enforcement under, say, Obama.
But it's way less than the amount of American citizens killed by Barack Obama.
No.
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Look, I don't want to be disrespectful.
Oh, we're doing the drone strikes things where we're lying about what happened regarding Obama and drone strikes. All right. Just to clear the air, let's look it up. You know, we love research. We love fact checking. What happened? This is how I type it in. Did Obama kill American citizens? Look it up. All right. PolitiFact, really good source to ensure political information is factually correct. President Obama was responsible for the assassination of at least 4 American citizens in drone strikes. Let's read this.